You're listening to Your Superpowered Mind on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that investigates the innate power within your brain to create lasting change.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Superpowered Mind. I'm your host, Kristin Maxwell, and I am so excited you're here. In this podcast, we are going to give you tools and strategies you can use right away to master your mind, connect to your personal power, and transform yourself and your world. My guest today is Abby Rohrer, and we are going to be talking about accessing personal power. Abby is a gifted master anxiety healer and coach with over 2 decades experience. She helps individuals neutralize fear, worry, anxiety, and stress. She's the author of 3 books and the creator of 6 programs that help women resolve anxiety and the negative habits that interfere with their confidence and success in life and business. I'm so happy to share Abby and her wisdom with you today. She has this ability to listen to what you are saying and to really get to the base of what is going on with you. It's an amazing gift. Abby, welcome to Your Superpowered Mind.
Thanks, Kristin. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
No, it's great. It's our pleasure. And my first question on the podcast is always, what superpower did you discover as the result of mastering your mind?
Well, I guess the superpower that I discovered was my own truth. And in fact, I would say that it has helped me to master my mind as opposed to coming first. It has really been the result. Mastering my mind has been the result of finding the way to face my truth.
Wow. So this is the process you followed, or one of the tools that actually helped you. Can you tell us, what do you mean by facing your truth?
I mean, getting real with yourself, with oneself about how you really feel, what's really going on with you, as opposed to, really being swayed too much by outside voices and outside opinions.
Yes. I'm raising 3 teenage daughters myself, and this would be a very good skill for them to learn. So can you tell the listeners, how did it come about that you started to looking at your truth and realizing that that's what you needed to do?
Yeah, well, in a way, I kind of fell into it, but basically, I found this in the mid-90s, in 1994, and I was somebody who was, even though I had a professional corporate career in those days, I was racked with self-doubt and, feelings of not being enough and a lot of anxiety. So anxiety was always this foundation in my life, and had been since I was a child. And I spent many years in that, prior to 1994, looking for outside answers for my inner pain. And I was even struggling at that time with probably it was 26-year compulsive behavior, and that was compulsive hair pulling. And so in the process of trying to, basically just trying to find a way to survive in my life and in my body and be, find a place of peace and calm, I happened to stumble into a way to face my own truth. And that happened when I came face to face with a question, which was, the question was, did I really, really want to end my compulsive behavior? I was telling myself back then that I really wanted to, because I was so ashamed of it. And of course, it wasn't, quote, normal. And so, if the world thought I should want to end it, then I should want to end it. What happened that one day is that a voice in my head, some I think wise part of me said, "Are you sure that you want to end it?" And all of a sudden, my truth just showed up in me, and I said, "No, I don't think that I really do. I think," and then of course the next question arose, which is, well, what are you getting out of it? What's the benefit of it? And in this process of these questions, I found a way to get real with myself, and I stopped being afraid to listen to myself. And I began more and more to find, to follow a process that helped me to always look to myself first, then to look outside into to the world for answers to what was going on for me internally.
Wow, that's powerful. So, because it sounds, maybe walk us through a little bit more about how recognizing that you really didn't want to, at some level, end your hair pulling, how that ended up really helping you to transform, how you live your life, and actually ultimately end up stopping that behavior.
Yeah. So that was, that was really the beginning of the actual healing of my hair pulling. Compulsive behaviors they're not medically curable. There is no known medical cure for compulsive behaviors like the one I struggled with. And what happened was that as I became honest with myself about not wanting to end it and acknowledging that there was some kind of benefit for me in it, I then began to do a couple of things. The first thing was, and I don't know how I knew to do this, since my truth had just shown up, and since I recognized that all those years I had been trying to make myself stop this deviant behavior, so two things happened. One was that I had to recognize that for some reason I need it. And I discovered that underneath it were volumes and volumes and what I call storehouses of anxiety that I was carrying. And this compulsive behavior helped me to distract myself. It helped me to be alone. I only ever did this in private. It helped me to take space for myself. It helped me to be alone without having to acknowledge that I was alone or face that I was alone. So that was one thing. The second thing was that, and again, I don't know how I knew to do this, but once I identified what my truth was, then I let myself have it with compassion and without beating myself up. In other words, I just said, okay, this is the way that I feel. I'm not going to resist it because I've spent all these years resisting my own truth. So in the letting myself have, not wanting to end it, I actually ultimately found a way to end it, if that makes sense to you.
It does. That is really recognizing what you were getting from it was able to, for you then to say, okay, now I'm going to figure out other ways to get what I need than hiding it. And you know what? I want to go to explore, how facing your truth has allowed you to change, a lot of things in your life. But we're going to take a break first. Before we go, can you tell people where they can go to find out more about you?
Sure. they can go to my website, Rohrer.com, and that's spelled ABBYROHRER.com.
Great. Thanks, Abby. When we come back, we are going to talk to Abby more about how facing your truth can help you to access your own personal power.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Your Superpowered Mind, and we are talking to Abby Rohrer. And Abby, I want to use this part of the show to get a little bit more of an understanding about how facing the truth about your anxiety and your compulsive behavior, how has your life changed as a result of facing that truth?
Well, Kristin, my life has changed in so many ways. It's almost changed so much that it is very different from how it was back then. Well, first of all, I no longer pull my hair out compulsively. I have a different career, from the experience, the healing that came from all of this, a body of work poured out of me, and I was able to actually move forward and help other people with anxiety and self-doubt and compulsion. So that became my career. And partway along the way, in the last 15 years, I guess about 8 or 9 years ago, a second part, or maybe call it an upgrade to that work, the original self-help based, sometime about 9 years ago, I was intuitively shown a way to do energy healing to help people with anxiety. So that changed my work even more. And, in becoming an energy healer with my own method, my relationships are completely and totally different from, and better from how they used to be. I used to go into the world and I was very armored. I was super vigilant. I was always looking for, who was going to hurt me. I took everything personally. I was really painfully sensitive, and I obsessed a lot of the time. So I used to get myself into obsessive loops. Those times when, you just find your mind circling over and over around a certain issue that doesn't seem to be solvable. So I have found my way out of, and I've taught people all over the world. I've taught other people how to end hair pulling. I have taught other people how to heal themselves of their own anxiety. So my family relations are much improved. I mean, so much has changed. It's amazing.
Yes, that sounds pretty much like your entire world has changed. And I find it striking that learning sometimes the hardship that we face leads us to how we are to help other people, or how we're to show up, and what our purpose is in this world. And it very much has for you, it sounds like. And how long have you been cured of hair pulling now?
Over 24 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Almost as long as I spent doing it.
Yes, that's great. Well, so for the listeners out there who might really not be in the habit of looking inside themselves or don't even know how to get started, maybe there's some anxiety that they're facing or behaviors or habits in themselves that they don't like, what would you recommend that they do to start looking at their own truth?
I would recommend a few, well, let's start with this. I would recommend that first and foremost that they make a decision to get honest with themselves. This comes from a decision. You can get there this way. Instead of struggling to try to make yourself do it, to all these things we try to do, or to create a habit, by making yourself do it for 30 days. I recommend that you just make a decision because you're convinced that facing your own truth is really one of the fastest ways to empower yourself, to reduce your self-doubt, and to lessen your internal pain. So that's number one. And number two, what you can do is you can start to use the amazing process of Julia Cameron's morning pages, which she wrote about in the Artist's Way book. I don't remember what year, but it's a while back, so you'll be able to find a copy of that. And so I really recommend that you do that process, and with one additional guideline, and that is that as soon as you finish these pages, as soon as you finish this journaling technique, and you should do it every day, as soon as you finish writing, you tear up your pages. And what that does is it keeps you from rereading them and judging yourself based on what you've written. So it stops you from judging yourself, and that automatically will increase your level of self-compassion. And the second thing it does is it gives you a totally, totally safe space to say anything and everything that you have never been willing to kind of voice before. Because in tearing up the pages, you completely save yourself the risk of anybody else picking up your pages and reading them. So the two places we get judged the most, right, are our own minds, right? And also other people come in and sometimes take the information that they know about us and to judge us, or we feel that they are judging us. So that tearing up the pages is super important.
Right. It just increases the safety, the feeling of safety, and in saying stuff that you have never said to yourself before, perhaps. And do you have any guidance for people about what should they write about? Or is there any, any question to answer, or is it just free flow writing?
It really is free flow writing, completely stream of consciousness, and not stopping until you get to the end of the 3 pages. And so one of the things that she recommends is that you basically, if you run out of something to say, you write, I can't think of anything to say, or my mind is blank, until you either think of something or your 3 pages are up. There is a question, I think, you might go into this with, but really it's best to go in free form. But there is a question that I recommend that people, aside from the journaling, ask themselves on a regular basis, and that is, what is real for me, independent of what everybody else thinks, what they say, what they believe, or what they feel? What's really real for me? And I think this question is more important today than at any time before in the history of the world. Because what we're seeing is that we're really getting a glimpse these days of the bullying that not only goes on between, we're seeing play out like in social media, etc., is really just kind of a window into what we're doing inside our own heads so much of the time. So what I discovered in my own head was a very big fat bully that was, I once drew a picture of this. Some part of me had a big baseball bat that I was kind of beating myself over the head with. And when you start to listen to yourself, that bullying voice sometimes either dumps itself on the paper, or you start to just get a window into how mind works and what's going on in there. And it just allows listening to yourself, just allows more compassion to surface.
Right. Wow. That's, I know that it is very true that when you start really paying attention to what's going on in your mind, at least in my case and in many of my clients, it's very negative. The things that you are saying to yourself, or the things you're believing. You might say that something's true, and then the next second it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that that's what I think. So I love that the reminder to be non-judgmental as we start really looking at our truths. That's really very powerful.
Right. And let me just add one other thing. Sometimes when people start the journaling process, they find that, a voice like this, like a bullying part of them might want to speak, or they might find an angry part. If they continue and don't give up, over time, those parts of you might play out. They might just run out of energy. So this is such a great way to just acknowledge it and allow it and just let the energy of it kind of basically spend itself, so that you can find out and discover what's real for you underneath all that.
That's right. So the fact that you have this voice that has yearnings you haven't acknowledged, and maybe also this voice that's very angry and very insecure, and really getting to know what is going on in your mind. Yeah, that's very powerful. So tell us, how do you help people now get rid of their own, anxiety and self-doubt? What do you do with your own patients or clients? I guess it's not patients, they're clients.
Right, they're clients. I'm not a doctor or a therapist. I'm a healer and a teacher. And what I do is I help people either by doing healing for them or teaching them how to use my method, my process. What I help them to do is to literally drain the energy of these storehouses of anxiety and self-doubt and even emotions, guilt, shame, whatever, that they are, this stuff is literally like stacked up inside of us like suitcases, filled with all of these things. I help them to drain out this energy. And it is an amazing thing, Kristin, because when that stuff is neutralized and drained out, people can, for the first time, stand being in their bodies. The reason I pulled my hair out for all those years, and to a large extent, was because I couldn't, and I had no consciousness about this, but being in my body, it didn't feel like a safe space for me. So instead, I distracted myself. I numbed myself. I did all this hair pulling in order to be somewhere without having to face what was going on in my body. And nervous system is calm. I find that being in my body is a safe place. And when anxiety kicks up, which it does occasionally, I have the tools, whether it's, 10 o'clock in the morning or 3 a.m., I have the tools to like lickety split, drain that stuff out and go back to total peace. And that's what I help people do. And once you do this, what you can do is, so my clients can now get to inner peace of mind and body around whatever anxious or self-doubting place they've been struggling with, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be in their career, their business, around money, whatever. That once this stuff is calmed down and you're at peace, you can actually step forward with ease and confidence to pursue your dreams in any area of life and show up as if it's a new day, a new moment, dragging your fears about what could happen or what's happened in the past into this, highly productive moment. So wow. It just makes pursuing your dreams so much easier and even faster.
That's amazing. Well, we are getting close to the end of our time. I've really enjoyed speaking to you today. Can you remind people again where they can find more information about you and your healing processes for anxiety and self-doubt?
Sure. They can find more information on my website at abbyrohrer.com. That's ABBYROHRER.com. Or they can email me at abby@abbyrohrer.com.
Thank you. And so I like to sort of summarize, if I can, the tool or the technique that you're recommending. And so what I've heard Abby say is that what we want to do is make a habit of journaling, really free form journaling, with often asking ourselves the question, what is real for me in this moment? Not what's other people are expecting of me, or I expect that they are expecting of me, but what is really true for me? What does my heart want? And really letting those parts of our self speak without judgment. So thank you so much for coming and listening. And until next time, go out and remember that you do hold the power to change and transform your world. Thank you.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.